Today, I want to tackle a subject that is really popular in our world today. And I know that because I hear about it all the time. And I've had some people asking me this question: is there a religious exemption for the COVID vaccine? Now, we all know about the COVID vaccine, right? We're hearing about this all the time. There are mandates out there, companies mandating it, and we hear about this all the time. And so there are many people that are looking for a religious exemption because for whatever reason they don't want to get the vaccine, and they're wondering, is there a religious exemption for this? Now, I want you to understand in this video, I'm not going to tell you if you should take the vaccine or not. I am not going to try to push it one way or another. I just want to explore what or how to think about this, okay? Because some Christians are saying, is there a problem with this? I've heard that there is a connection to abortion, but I just don't like the feel of it. Or maybe it's okay. And in your opinion, whatever it is fine. But I just want to give some thoughts as we think about this. Is this something that we should do or not? Now, I actually have written a document about this. If you want to read that, it'll be in more clear form because I was able to think about how to write it all down with footnotes and everything. That's on my website. There will be a link in the description of this video under here where you can go and read that and download it and look at it more if you want to, and let me know what you think about it. But we're having mandates. We're having ultimatums for many people. You have to get the vaccine, or maybe you can't travel, or you can't go to school, or you can't work here anymore. We're getting this all over the place. And for some Christians, it's no problem, right? For some Christians, you take the vaccine, you think it's a way to help other people, and you want to be healthy yourself, and you say there's no problem with it, so you take it. And other people are saying, I've heard about the abortion connection, I don't like the government's control, and I just want more time, whatever, and can I say no to this vaccine? So I just want to give some thoughts about that. Now, some of you, if you're a Christian, you'll say, no problem, I'll take it. Some say, I don't know. That's just what I want to deal with here today. And I was thinking about this. How do you answer someone who says, is there a religious exemption for taking the vaccine? And I got to thinking, what are some reasons that Christians would have against it? And I thought of three things. And you can remember this with A, B, and C if it helps. And maybe none of these affect you. You might listen and say, I don't have a problem with this. And that's completely fine. This is between you and God. And it's not for someone who thinks differently to attack someone who thinks different than they do. Okay. These are just thoughts that I want to give you as you kind of deal with this in your own mind. So A, B, C. A is the abortion connection. B is the body. The body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. Should we really be concerned about what we put in it? And C is contribute or contribution. Are we contributing to some kind of future evil by taking the vaccine? Okay, these are just three areas to consider. But first, and probably most importantly, I want to look at the abortion connection. Now, I'm going to try to put more details. I have more details in the document that I've written about this. But just to give you some general ideas about it, because this is the first thing we heard, right? Well, it's aborted babies that are allowing us to have these shots or these vaccines. So what should we think about it? So I did some studying to find out what is really the truth about this, because we don't want hyperbole, right? We just always want to know the truth as we try to make informed decisions. And so I think the first thing that we need to point out is that in the vaccines that we have, the three major ones that we have in this country, there are no baby fetal cells, no baby parts in the vaccines. Okay, so if you ever heard that, that's just plain false. It's just not true. However, the fetal cell lines were used as these were developed to a certain degree. Now, I'm going to explain this a little bit to you, but first of all, what is a fetal cell line? Okay, a fetal cell line is when a baby is stillborn or aborted, they take cells from that baby and they learn to propagate them in a lab. And so what they do is, these cells reproduce more cells and they reproduce more cells. And so what we have today, and there's two major fetal cell lines that are in use today, and they are many, many generations removed from the actual cells that were used that came from the babies who were aborted. Now, there's two primary cell lines that are used in these vaccines, and one is called HEK293. You can look up all this stuff online. And this is from an abortion that happened in 1973 in the Netherlands. And there was even some question I saw whether it was a spontaneous abortion or medically induced abortion. But that one is from 1973. And the other one is called PERC6. And that is a retinal cell line from an aborted fetus from 1985, also in the Netherlands. Okay, these were the two cell lines that were used in any way at all that are in any way connected with the COVID vaccines or COVID shots, however you want to put it, right? So there are two types of vaccines that are out there: mRNA and viral vector vaccines. And they both pretty much accomplish the same thing, but they do it in just a slightly different way. And how they make use of these aborted cell lines vary just a little bit too in how they use them. Now, the COVID virus itself, it's important for us to understand this. It is actually the SARS-CoV-2 is what it's actually called, a virus, and it's called a coronavirus because of its distinctive shape. It has all these spikes on it, make it kind of resembling a crown, and those crowns are actually spike proteins, and they are the defining factor of the coronavirus. And those spike proteins are what the vaccines use. They recognize that, and once they see a spike protein like that, they will learn to attack it because it's foreign to the body, and therefore you become immunized. Now, how traditional vaccines work is they would put an inactive or alive but weakened germ in your body, and your body would learn to fight against it, and then you would have immunization. But the way that the vaccines are working today with newer types of technology is they are actually causing our bodies, if you have the vaccine, they're causing your body to manufacture fake spike proteins that look like the ones on the COVID vaccines, but they aren't really, and they're harmless. But the body sees those and it learns to attack those and store up the antibodies against them. And then later, when you actually get an actual coronavirus in you, it says, aha, I know that, I've seen that before, and it goes to attack it. And so that's kind of how they work. Now, there are two major types, like I said, of COVID vaccines. One is the mRNA vaccines, and Pfizer and Moderna are mRNA vaccines. Basically, what they do is they introduce mRNA into the body, which is it's a messenger acid, basically, and it teaches your cells how to produce this spike protein that is found on the outside of the coronavirus. And your immune system sees that, and it learns how to develop antibodies against it, and then you're vaccinated for however long it lasts. And that's basically how it works, okay? Now, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, the mRNA vaccines, did not use any of the fetal cell lines in the production. They don't use it in production. The only place that they used these cell lines was in the testing phase. You know, they figured this out. They say, we think it works. Now we want to try this on actual human cells. And so they took these cells that are generations removed from the actual abortions, and they found out that it works, and that becomes a vaccine. Okay, so that's the connection there. The other type of vaccine, the viral vector vaccine, that's what Johnson & Johnson is. It pretty much does the same thing. It teaches your body how to manufacture fake spike proteins. But the way it does it is it takes what is called a vector cell, and it takes genetic information from a COVID a virus, and it puts it in basically a harmless virus, and then they insert that into they take the information from that, they insert it into your body, and it teaches your body how to fight against this spike protein for when it shows up in an actual when the actual virus shows up in you. So that's basically how it works. But the main difference here as far as abortion is the Johnson & Johnson uses the PER-C6 fetal cell line in the production. That's how they develop, they take this harmless virus and they use the fetal cell lines, the cells there, to make this. But then when it goes in your body, it's been stripped of all fetal cell tissue. So it's not any of the fetal cell tissue that goes in your body, but the actual virus was, or this fake virus, if you want to put it, the vector was actually grown within these fetal cell lines. And so that's the connection there that you have. So obviously, if you think about this, if you're going to look at the morality aspect of it, the mRNA vaccines, the Pfizer and Moderna, are more along the lines of moral because they only were used for testing, as opposed to Johnson & Johnson that was used in the production. But again, it all goes down to, if you look at that information, and you can obviously read a whole lot more about it online or even in my document, but you look at this information and you have to come to terms with it yourself. Do I see a moral problem with this? If you have no moral problem with that, then you have it with a clear conscience before God, then that wouldn't be an issue. But if you as a Christian say, I cannot take any vaccine that has any kind of connection at all to abortion, then maybe you need to stop and you need to think about this and say, I'm not going to do this. Now, one of the questions that will often come up is, have you taken any vaccines? For instance, the MMR. Part of the MMR, which I believe is the rubella part of it, also has a connection similar to that with abortion. So did you take that? You gave that to your kids? Would you do it again if the opportunity arose? These are the kind of questions that some people might have if you're going to say, I don't want to take it because of religious exemption. So just things that you need to think about as you're working through this. Are you going to take part in this or not? One of the questions that we have to ask if we were to take this vaccine or any vaccine is there some kind of moral evil that is taking place when I take this vaccine? For example, are there children that are being aborted so I can have it? Now, again, it all goes back to way back in the past. Those children were aborted. Were they aborted for the purpose of having vaccines? I've not seen any information that leads us to believe that. They took aborted baby, the cells, and they use them for tests and use them some into production. But were they actually aborted for the purpose of providing these vaccines? I haven't seen that anywhere. Maybe you can look up that information yourself, but I haven't seen anything like that. So as a Christian, you have to look at this yourself and say, judging by what I know, could I in clear conscience take this or could I not? That's a judgment call. That's a religious exemption maybe that you want to try for if you seriously have a problem with it, not just if you say, I don't want it, so I'm going to find something. But do I really, truly have a religious issue with this? Okay. Do I think somehow I am contributing to abortions because I'm doing that? Now, what some people will say that would like to fight against people who would use the abortion connection as a religious exemption, and they say, well, wait a minute here. You're saying that you don't want to use a vaccine that has been connected with abortions in the past, but you want to kill people today, right? You want to go around and you want to share COVID and people are dying because of COVID. They call it a moral contradiction, right? You don't want those babies from decades ago to die, but yet you want people around you to die. So, that's an argument that's out there, but you have to be careful with these kind of arguments because that's not taking into consideration what the folks with a religious exemption or religious problem with this would be. For example, there's many people that don't believe in what they would call the perceived hype of COVID. Now, whatever your position is, that's your position and that's fine. But we have to understand from both sides here. Some people just don't believe it's at quite, what we always hear about in the news. And there is questions about the efficacy and the long-term effects that we don't know yet about these vaccines. And then there's the vacillating proclamations of our government officials, because experts seem to contradict each other and they don't always know what to talk about. So there's all these things that are added in. So it's not like Christians are saying, well, I don't care if people die, I just don't want to take the vaccine. No, they're saying maybe it's not really going to help. That's what's going on. So just try to be understanding of people who think differently than you do. So that's the A, okay? That's one thing to consider if you think maybe you should have a religious exemption for taking the vaccine. And the second one, B, is the body is the temple. This is one argument that people use too, because the Bible tells us in 1 Corinthians 6:19 that the body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. And I don't want to put an untested, questionable anything in my body. My body is owned by God. My body is dedicated to his service. I don't want to inject a questionable substance into my body. Now, obviously, the rebuttal to that argument, if you're going to use it, you have to be ready to answer this, as you often put things in your body, right, that are unknown. Have you ever eaten a Big Mac? Have you ever eaten fries? Have you ever breathed oxygen? Have you ever drunk Diet Coke or coffee? What is in all this stuff? We don't always know. So we just have to have an answer if that's going to be your what you say. Now, you could say, well, wait a minute here. I don't trust the experts that are pushing this. I think maybe it was done fast. You can have all these things. You just have to come to an understanding in your own mind. Is this really an argument that you have? And if you're going to try to get exempted, you're going to have real good answers in some places. Explain why. By the way, some pastors are actually writing religious exemption letters for their parishioners about this, but I haven't seen many places actually require that. Some places I've heard do. Most of the time, it's just you have to give your answer. Why? Why do you think that this is a wrong thing to do? Okay. And the C, another reason to think about as we consider this is, Are we contributing to further evil? As we take this vaccine, is it contributing to further evil? Maybe will it contribute to more abortions in the future as we see, if it turns out that these vaccines are highly effective, more kids will be aborted because of that. Is that a question? We have to research that and find out. Or can they continue to use these cell lines on down the line? Or take them from other places where they don't have to use aborted babies. But another aspect of this, are we contributing to the future evil of government infringing further upon our lives? This is one of the big questions that people have had as there are mandates and things like that out there. Is the government encroaching further and further into our life in a place where it shouldn't be? And of course, the ultimate aspect of that I am most concerned about that is with our religious liberty. We've seen, time after time after time, the government just takes more and more control. And so some Christians are saying, oh, wait a minute here. I don't want the government taking more and more control of my life. Because, look at 2020. We all know about our infamous 2020 last year, right? You can't go to some stores. You can't go to church, but you can go to bigger stores. You can meet and have riots downtown, but you can't do these other things, and there's many Christians that are somewhat legitimately, I think, saying, wait a minute here, how far does this go? But again, this is for you to decide. Am I contributing? Am I allowing the government to further encroach on my liberties, which are eventually going to be, I can't go to church and I can't worship as I please and I can't evangelize as I think I'm supposed to? Or is this where we draw the line or not? Again, you have to come to that conclusion in your own mind. And I just want to finish by giving some thoughts, a note about the idea of vaccine hesitancy, right? This is the term we hear here. Vaccine hesitancy. Those people who don't get vaccinated, as the term is, are often seen as anti-vax fools, right? I can't believe these people, they're so naive. They just want everyone to die, and they're just believing this far-right social media memes instead of science and all that, which might be the case with some people. Some people might not actually think. Many people don't think, right? And they just see memes. They say, I'm not going to do it because they're telling me to, so I refuse to get the vaccine. But there are some things I think we need to consider. Maybe these are some things that you believe, you need to think through them, or maybe you just hate these anti-vaxxers and you can't believe why in the world would they not take the vaccine when they're killing everybody, right? Understand some things about the people who don't take the vaccine. And I'm just going to give a few things. Number one, some people have bona fide religious, conscious problems with taking this vaccine, as I talked about before. The abortion connection or government intrusion or whatever. They say religiously, between God and me, I cannot accept this into my life. My body's a temple, whatever it happens to be. Understand, some people really believe this is wrong, okay? Number two, many folks have concern over the efficacy and possible long-term effects of the vaccine. Now, we were told many times that it's safe. We're told that it's okay. Obviously, it hasn't been around for a long time. If you study this at all, you know that it's not like they just immediately came up with a vaccine. They're using technology that has been in place for decades, that they've worked on it. And so we don't want to get misinformation. But we're told by the experts it's safe, it's no problem. But some people would rather say, well, let me just see how the dust settles, because over this past year and a half, we've been told so many things. We're told this and we're told that. We just want to say, okay, let me find out. How many doses do we actually need? Which of the vaccines is actually going to work? Is there going to be a better one coming in the end? So that's one of the concerns people have. So before you jump all over the so-called anti-vaxxers, make sure you understand what their issues are with it. And if you have information, you can share that with them. But don't just jump on them as being mean and hateful, because they don't care about anybody. The third thing is that, and I've alluded to this already, that we've had so many conflicting statements from experts. As we all know, coming through 2020, we kept hearing science, do everything based on science. But then the opinions of those, even those who say they're basing everything on science, just keeps changing. Back at the very beginning of the pandemic, we were told, we shouldn't restrict travel from China. I can't believe President Trump is restricting travel from China. And then, oh, by the way, yeah, we should restrict travel not only from China, but to the grocery store down the street. Okay, so it changed. We were told that at first that, hey, this coronavirus is not a big thing you have to worry about, right? Hey, I think Pelosi even said you can go down to Chinatown, no problem, right? And then suddenly it's a big thing. It's the deadliest panic since 2000 or since 1918. We were told that you don't need to wear a mask, it's unnecessary. And then masks were mandated in order to save lives. We were told that you have to sanitize all surfaces, sanitize everything, sanitize your groceries when you bring them in. And then we find out, oh, well, that doesn't matter so much because COVID travels by air. We're told to stand 6 feet apart and then 3 feet apart. We're told herd immunity can be reached when we hit 60 to 70% of immunity. And then Dr. Fauci changed it to 80% when you realize that we might actually reach the 60 to 70%. We keep having all these changes. And some people say, well, wait a minute here. How do I know when to believe what they tell me? Okay. We were told that to save lives, obviously, small businesses had to close, large businesses could stay open. And obviously, the most dangerous thing is closed churches. You can't meet in large groups, but yet our government was silent when thousands of people would meet in downtown and they would burn things, everything, and have these riots in the name of social justice and everything. So we just look at this and we say, wait a minute, how do I know who to believe in this situation? And so that's what many people who aren't taking the vaccine would say is, well, wait a minute here, because they keep changing. Let me just wait until we find out the truth. Just wait until we know how this is all going to work before I actually take this vaccine, okay? The equivocation in our government and our so-called scientific and medical leaders, it shows us that not all decisions are based on science. And sometimes, some people might just say, I wish they would just tell us what that they think something rather than that they know it, then have to keep changing their mind because now we don't know who to trust. We don't know what to believe. Okay, so if maybe you're on the vaccination train, right? And you say everybody should get it. I hope this information will help you to understand those on the other side, that they're not being mean, they're not being hateful, they just don't buy it. And if you believe that nobody should get vaccinated, try to understand the people on the other side where, they see it as, okay, this is where the dust settles. This is the thing that's going to help us get past this. And let's have a little bit of mercy and grace toward other people. Because they think differently, right? Rather than just shooting memes back and forth, being hateful to people. And how can you be a Christian and think that or whatever? Understand people have reasons. Many people have reasons that they think what they think, and we need to have a little bit of grace and a little bit of mercy toward them. So the question is there a religious exemption for taking the vaccine? And the unequivocal answer is it all depends on your conscience before God. When you consider all these things, some of you might say, you know what, I cannot take this vaccine because I believe before God it would be a sin. Then you fight it. But some of you might say, well, I just need to wait a little more time. I need to see, how's it all going to work? Which one should I take? Well, give us some more time. Some of you might say, hey, I still think everybody should take it. Just understand those who don't understand that there are reasons that they don't do it. So whatever, whether you think everybody should take it or nobody should take it or whatever, just have a little bit of grace, have a little bit of mercy toward other people, and have a good conscience before God for whatever you decide. Again, look up this document. It lays it out a little more clearly probably than me just talking about it. I'll have the link here below it. And I hope that you'll let me know what you think. Don't be hateful. You might not agree with what I said, but I just tried to share some information with you from my study, and maybe it'll just help with this cacophony of voices that we have, right? Everybody's sharing their opinion. Maybe this will help you a little bit as you try to get your thoughts together. God bless you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.